Welcome to the Extra Time Podcast, where you'll hear sports stories you might not have heard about from people you might not have heard of. Let's get into this week's show.
Ho, 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 and very merry, happy Christmas. Well, it feels like Christmas. It's footy
Christmas
finals
for footy fans.
time. Welcome back to the Extra Time Footy Podcast. Mark Woods and myself, Aidan Box, are here to keep you company, to talk some footy. And before you get ahead of yourselves, it's not a Hawthorn podcast. It's a Hawthorn podcast on this side, only because we're back in them for the first time.
I'm keeping it
like
unbiased.
ages.
I'm keeping it unbiased over here. You're gonna talk all up Hawthorn. Well, I'm gonna actually be talking up Hawthorn as well in a bit, but it must be strange for you. You haven't felt this for a while. I mean,
It's been ages, mate. Yeah. What is it now? 7 long years?
you wouldn't have thought
6 maybe?
Like, you wouldn't have thought it would be happening so soon.
Yeah, well, potentially not. Yeah. That's no...
Like, you can't tell me at the start of the year, like, even if you can remember, if you've watched any of our podcasts, when they were sitting 12 and they were looking good, they had
I
a
said
good run
last
home.
week.
You're like, oh, I don't care. And I'm there going, mate, you're a great shot for finals. Like, surely...
I said last week at the start of the year I thought we'd win 4 games, maybe 5. That doesn't get you in finals. So, no, I did not think we'd be here.
Yeah, but during the season...
But here we are.
During the season, like, you're one of these 8 teams that have contended it throughout the year and you're still standing. Unfortunately for my team, we're not. And
Yeah, your team suck. No,
I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. I know it's not on the thing, but Josh Battle, hope he does extremely well at Hawthorn.
Yeah, cheers.
I know last podcast I spoke about the Zach Jones stuff, and I want to reiterate these comments about players that leave clubs, because I'm disgusted about some of the comments made by St Kilda fans using the excuse of the love of the club to write abuse. And it is that. It is just that. It is abuse. So I just want to counteract that by wishing Josh Battle all the best. And if you want to write vile comments, all it does is show the type of person you are. And chances are those people won't watch this podcast, but it breaks my heart knowing that St Kilda fans are like that. And It's not just St Kilda fans, it's every supporter base. But at the end of the day...
It's not good enough, is it?
It isn't. At the end of the day, they're football players.
They have a life.
Yeah.
He's making a life decision.
He's making a life decision, not to affect him in 5-10 years' time, but to set him up, to set his family up. And I respect that. I'm not there going, oh, your hands are tied, you've got to pick St Kilda or else. It's like, some of the people just go over the top when it comes to it.
Yeah.
Like, they're sometimes too passionate.
It's not going to ruin the team and make them awful at all.
At the end of the day, he was a 200
But that's
game
how
plus
everyone's
player.
treating him. He's a great
200
player, but he's
game
not
plus
ruining
player.
your club.
200 plus game player, great loyal servant, but at the same time, AFL, as great as it is a sport of the fans, it's a business, and if you're a player...
And it's emotional, we get that, but it's a business.
All I'm going to say is social media is a very dangerous place because it really goes to show... It brings out your true self in a sense. Now, I can't stop saying it. It's like, if you've got nothing good to say, just keep quiet about it.
Yeah.
Let it go past. If you think you're entitled to say something, and I've had these conversations.
If you want to say it that bad,
scream
it in your pillow or scream it to your mum.
You see, I'm going on. And this is funnily enough, the same person that I've seen comments about, they've made comments in the past, and they've got the entitlement of saying, well, I pay money, I pay a membership, I pay to go to the footy, I'm entitled to say this, I'm entitled to do this. Whether it be booing a player, now I'll bring up the situation that immediately came to mind, was that the Adam Good saga. I said, why are you booing him? He's a champion. And they listed off reasons to justify that booing. I'm like, well, why boo a champion of the game? And I think Nathan Buckley, was it shame on anybody that would boo a champion of the game? Well, I think shame on anybody that would comment about a player leaving because
making a life decision.
making a life
like
decision.
imagine if
like,
Josh had gone to those people and gone like, "Oh, as if you just moved house. Oh, as if you just took this
Yeah.
job. Oh, that's awful, mate," and then started berating them. It's a
Yeah.
joke. He's making a life decision. Like we don't, the fans don't get ripped apart by AFL players when they move job or move house
No, exactly.
or break up with their partner.
Even
It's
by
the same thing. It's on the
even by
same
your
line.
family, even by your family, like you've chosen just you move banks. You've chosen ANZ over Commonwealth Bank. Oh, you're dead. No, it's like come on.
Awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing as Josh is doing.
At
He's
the end
making a
of
life
the day,
decision.
at the end of the day, the sun rises the next day.
St Kilda will
life
still be
goes
in the
on.
AFL. They'll still be doing great.
Yeah, we'll still we'll pick up players. We'll recover.
Yep.
Like I just want to put that out there before we get into the final stuff. That if you go, and this goes to every club, if you're going to make comments about a player leaving through free agency, take a good hard look at yourself, because at the end of the day,
It's not even that deep.
at the end of the day, they're fulfilling their dream and they're making life choices to affect them in decades to come. And they're a human being.
100%.
So,
Said very well, and I reckon that is your footy find of the week, because footy finds don't have to all be positive. Sometimes
I will
they're
say that is my
yeah.
footy find of the week. I did say earlier I didn't have anything, and this was literally a spur of the moment thing.
But that's what this segment's about, I guess. If you find something you want to talk about, this is the perfect time to do it. Mine is a happy one. I don't think there is a better story this whole year. There are some cool stories this year. This guy tore his ACL for, I think, how many times it is, maybe to a third, fourth time.
Yeah, funnily enough, when did he tear his ACL?
In March.
What game?
2024,
What game?
opening round at the Gabba.
At the Gabba.
May I
What
remind
game
you,
is he returning to?
Brisbane Lions at the Gabba. Yeah,
Oh.
it's nuts. That's not what.
You couldn't write
That's not what
this.
I'm happy about though, because I've been through this injury myself only once. He's been through it multiple times, and cancer. Nothing stops him.
Yeah.
He is the most incredible, tough thing that has ever come out of Phillip Island. And I know a lot of people down on the island. They're great people, but they haven't produced much like this. He's not only an incredible footballer,
Oh.
he's 10 times a better man than he is a footballer as well, which is saying something because he's a gun. The inspiration that he's not only given his fans, his teammates most importantly, but the whole of the AFL is something that I can't put into words, and I can speak underwater. He did it in March, Woods.
Oh,
It took me about 20 months.
how
we
many
are
days?
in
How many
September.
days? How many days?
It is
200?
6 months.
6 months?
6
180?
months. So we're
180
talking
days.
half the time. So a normal ACL by standards of AFL, by standards of history, 12, 13 months. That's
Yep.
what I got told. The best ones we've seen, I think Ashcroft came back earlier this year for the Lions and getting perfect run, no mishaps. You don't miss a day of rehab sort of thing. His was, around about a year, around about 12, around about 10 maybe, 10 months. 6 months. He is superhuman. There's part of me that wants to go maybe drug test him because the
all
human
I'm
body's
gonna
not
say-
meant to
all I'm
heal
gonna
this quick.
say is
Incredible though.
I'm going to put a can't touch wood on this, but I just want to see him play out the game.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the
That's
things.
the bad thing, right? There's been a handful of ACLs on that deck this year.
I think you know where I'm
Kadeem
going.
Coleman in the
Yeah.
same game as Doc did his.
I
Like,
think
it's
you
not
know
a great
exactly,
surface
I
at
think
the
you know
Gabba.
exactly where I'm going with this. It's one of those things where, as great as it is to see him return, I just don't want it to be at the end of the game. The story is, guess what? He's injured again or something. Let's see him play out this game.
It's just I can't speak. I cannot speak on this. It's absolutely speechless. It is the most remarkable feat I have almost ever seen. And the lift. Like, we saw it last year when they absolutely flogged him out the gates in that prelim. That'll happen again. There is absolutely no way Carlton will not be as pumped up as they've been in 30 years in the first quarter. You're running out with one of your leaders who's been through cancer, who's been through 2 or 3 knee injuries, and he's come back in 6 months just because just because he wants to be there that badly. He had no right coming back to this. It's an elimination final in which I remind everybody they just snuck into, which we'll get to in a bit. But he's playing because he loves them that much. Like, if you are Cripps and the other leaders, you've got to be like, what else do we need to say? He's here.
Yeah.
You know what this guy's been through. He's here. Look at this. So that's my footy find for this week. But, like I said, it is finals time, and it all will culminate in the grand final, and there's something that sort of moves on very well from footy finds. It's this, which is one of the best things I've seen added to our great game in a long time.
Yep. Absolutely sensational. And presenting it to the Premiership captain, great idea. So it's along with the
coach gets one as well.
Yeah,
I've just Jock McHale medal.
Jock McHale, I literally just forgot the name just then. But what I'd love to see is maybe not on grand final day, but like all players getting recognised in the squad. But
yeah,
I still think we need to have a medal that is that Bob Murphy medal. And
yeah,
I think you can't name it anything but Bob Murphy. It's one of those players that have been a stalwart of the club. And
Nick Nat-Nui in 2018, probably the same.
Misses out. Like, you might not have it every year.
Dan McStay last year.
Yeah, you might not have it every year, or you have it.
I think that
it's the unlucky player.
I don't mind
the story.
There was a story on it earlier this year, maybe even last year, grand final week. It comes up every year. I don't mind the idea of the 23 on the day get medals, but the whole squad get rings.
Or
like, I think a
ring.
I think a ring. Because it's a little bit different to a medal. You've got to earn the medal, but everybody gets a ring. Yeah. So if you played a game that year, you get a ring.
I'm pretty sure Collingwood did that in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. I agree with it in principle, but it's like even a medallion, a token of like an AFL, just the medal, and then you've got the medallion for the rest, where it's not quite the medal of the thing. Yeah. It can just be you were part of the 2024 Premiership squad.
Yeah.
So, or the Premiership club, and it's okay. Well, I know
because everybody.
I know the NFL does, like every employee of that organisation get a ring.
Absolute whole lot, and theirs is even. I'm pretty sure you don't even have to have played any minutes at all.
No, well, it's like janitors,
which is interesting. I wouldn't.
The janitors, the merchandise people, like the people that are integral.
I wouldn't go that far.
Sorry, I won't say that word, but because I don't know if it's a word or not. But the people that are like, part of the success. So the assistant coaches, you've got the property stewards. Like they're part of the club.
Yeah.
Like I think those are the ones where it's like, okay, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm there going, well, I do think like the club doesn't win a premiership just with those 23 players on the day and the coach. They win it with the assistant coaches. They win it with the squad. They win it with the people that volunteer their hours to get them to a point. They win it with, those players, the trainers, the doctors. And I think, why not recognise that? So I know I've gone a bit of a tangent from the Ron Barassi medal, but I think this is a good...
I agree. I would just like for our game to keep it different and with the tradition. I think somewhere in the middle is good.
Yeah. Well, I think going back to Ron Barassi, though, I know there was talk about maybe the trophy named after him, and I think this is the perfect medal for him.
And
I think the fact that the Premiership Cup will, I like on my stance, don't name it after anybody. I think it's the Premiership Cup is the Premiership Cup. Yeah. I think you can find medals to present, like Premiership Captain, maybe the Bob Murphy medal or whoever, for that integral, player, the bad luck story for that club, and the club can nominate that person, or the coach can announce that person on the day, where
that'd be really cool. Yeah, I like that. You just take that higher.
It's one of those things where, at the same time, I'm going to basically contradict myself here. You take away from the special moments like the Bob Murphy, if you were to do that every year, though. I think it's one of those things where I'm torn now. Just talking it out loud, I'm very torn into going, do I want that, do I not? but I do think that you need a middle ground of every player that has played a part in it. And yeah, whether they've played a game or not that year, they've still been training. They've still been playing their part. Like, I know he's delisted now, but for Tom Campbell, right? I'm sure Tom Campbell hasn't played much, but his impact for Ron Marshall, having an experienced ruckman training to go one-on-one with, and he is the backup ruckman, but it's okay. He's also there teaching Max Heath and Isaac Keeler, I think is his name. So those little stories of, and they may not be part of the AFL squad. They may be on the fringes or in the development area or the resis, but they still play a part overall.
100%. And my favourite part about this is that the oldest premiership captain will present the Ron Barassi medal, which is Fred Wooler, who he was the captain for the Cats, I think, back in the 60s. The oldest living premiership captain is Fred Wooler.
Would be 63?
Yeah,
I'm
so
sure
I saw him on
get that
360
confirmed.
the other night, I think it was, and he speaks and looks like there is no way he is as old as he is, but he's in great nick, and he will present the Ron Barassi medal, which is really special, and it's such a great touch. The oldest living premiership captain will present it. So a great touch. But before further ado, it is finals time, Woods. So that's all we'll be talking this week. There's not too much else to talk about in terms of the footy. So just initial thoughts. Mine are that it's going to be an absolutely rip-snorting finals series, but I think it's going to be...
One way to put it.
Yeah, it's going to be different to usual because you don't have those massive, big, boisterous Melbourne clubs in it really at all. But I'm pumped for that. And this is not talking with the Hawthorn hat at all. I'm pumped for it to be really different. I'm pumped for it to be different than the ones we've seen the last few years without Richmond, without Collingwood.
No, I agree with you, but
without Carlton
I
to an extent.
For that stance of the big... There's no clear front runner. If you were to ask 100 people over the years, so 100 people each year, who's going to win the flag entering into September, generally they'd have that consensus of it's these 2-3 clubs. Like that's it.
Yeah.
They may have that odd one like the Doggies in 2016 where they came out of the blue. And I think this is going to be like that where...
And a lot of people have said...
You can't pick just the top 4 because of... You've got Brisbane, you've got Western Bulldogs, you've got Hawthorn, and you've got Carlton. And you see Carlton almost missed out. Well, they're getting their players back in now. Hawthorn, they're a very young, exciting side that they just show up.
Yeah. And a lot of people are saying at the moment, it's been the best season ever potentially with how close it is statistically, how good the product has been, and how many upsets and how many close games there's been, which is true. But I think Dwayne Russell said it the best a few weeks ago on Midnight Madness. I heard him say they were talking about the topic whether it's been the best season since this era started, and he said, I reckon it is. But you cannot say it's the best season ever unless the finals live up to the season.
Oh, definitely.
And that is perfectly said.
Definitely. I think the era is the 2012 onwards because of you've obviously got Gold Coast
everybody
and
in.
Yep. Like it's one of those things where...
a lot of pressure.
I've been asked who do I think is going to win the flag, and I'm like, I honestly can't pick because it's... As I was saying, go through and with Hawthorn, you've got that exciting Western Bulldogs. They show up and they can win. Their good is good enough to go all the way. Brisbane, they're unlucky not to be in the top 4, but that just means that they've got to do it the harder way, and that could be the most dangerous for all the sides because they will be having to win.
On the back of Woods being clueless of who can and can't win, I'm the same, and we've done it all year. But these finalists all have a chance. We will be there will be an article coming out potentially across Extra Time Media, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. We'll all be choosing who we think. It's a very hard task.
I think it's Premier and runner-up.
But we're going to be putting our heads together and trying to produce who we best think has the best chance to take it. But how about we've just put the bracket up quickly just to go through each game. So obviously it all starts tonight as this comes out, Thursday.
Yep.
Thursday night footy is back, finally.
And
I just want to say that because I've been on the scheduling all year, Woods. Thursday night footy is back. Port Adelaide hosting the Cats for, I think, the third time in the last 4 years.
And this one here, it's strange. I've got Port fans and I've got Geelong fans who... They're nervous. They are the most nervous.
There's a touch of both of these teams think, oh, we finished top 4. How did we do that?
Yeah.
Like, not like they weren't expecting to, but like, we didn't have a great season. It wasn't perfect. But we're here.
They're there, but they're playing each other and they're going, we don't want this. Like, it's one of those things where they win and do you want to win? Do you want to lose? It's like, looking at the bracket is the biggest thing because of if they win, they get the home final. But then they'll have to play the loser of the Giants in Sydney and the winner of Carlton and Brisbane. And if you lose, you're playing the winner of Hawthorn and Doggies at home. It's like...
But then you'll have to go up to Sydney.
And then you'll go up to Sydney. It's like...
You take the home prelim.
No, but exactly. I'm like... It's one of those things, though, that you're like... It is a hard road. If they had to win the premiership, either team, it's one of the hardest roads. And that's what, when I made that comment of, do you want to win or lose? It's like, no matter which road you take, no matter which path you take, it's almost as bad as the other. It's like two dark forests instead of that, the sun shining.
It's that close of a final series that you've got to take your chances. But on the back of that, I wouldn't even question it. I think you want to win because... As good as all the other 7 teams
you
are,
want to get that. You want to get
home,
that step. Yeah.
At home, like it's so much easier to take your chances when you're at home. You had a couple of weeks off, because at the end of the day, it is as close as it's ever been. Sure, every team in this has a chance. Sure, but there is always the factor every single year, no matter how close or how far away the teams are. It's so hard to win outside the top 4 for a good reason, and that reason is the more you travel, the more tired you are, the less likely you are to win. So if Geelong win, and you have to, and whoever has the Cats in that prelim at the G, good luck, because they would have had to travel around the country before going to the G to play the Cats.
I will counter out that point again. Bulldogs 2016.
Yeah, how many times has that ever happened? Once.
But it just goes to show that miracle story of, you might not have a game at home until the grand final, or you might not have a game at the G until the grand final, I should say. And it's like, well, hold on. You might travel to... Okay, you're not travelling to Perth. You might have to travel to Adelaide, Brisbane and Sydney. So for, say, Carlton. If Carlton were to do it, they would be going Brisbane to Sydney to potentially Port Adelaide. Or to Adelaide. And then add the G.
You're not getting to the G. With their injuries and the toll that they've taken already on the season, which you could say for all of those teams in the bottom 4 of the 8, by the time you get back to the G, you are absolutely toast. So if the Cats win this, you have the advantage, and you can't get away with that, and that's why you finish in the top 4. Because you have that double chance, you have that chance to stay at home. But this game, we'll just go through the games and then we'll go through the bracket. It works easier in my head. That game, huge. Port Adelaide, obviously, without 2 of probably their most integral players in Dan Houston and Kane Farrell off half back. There's been whispers, potentially Rozee goes back there. Personally, I don't think his ego could take that. I think he'd want to play in the middle, but we'll see. But like I said before, both of these teams didn't have the usual perfect season you see from second and third on the ladder. Geelong came out firing. They didn't lose for about 7 games, and then they had a horrific month where they got pumped in a couple of games. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was saying Tom Stewart's done. All of a sudden, Tom Stewart becomes a midfielder, starts dominating, and the Cats were back. But at the same time, they're not as complete as they used to be, especially in 2022. Obviously, they don't have Joel Selwood, probably not going to have Hawkins. It's a very young midfield. Danger is still there. He can still win them games, as we saw in Perth a few weeks ago against the Dockers. But it's not the same Danger. These young kids have got a lot more to do in this team. You don't have a Hawk up forward, so there's a lot more for Jeremy Cameron. And then there's the whole, defence sort of issue where it was awful during the mid part of the year, and then now it's back, it's okay. And then there's Port. So they're pretty much the same, except they didn't have that massive win streak at the start. They've just been up and down, up and down, up and down all year. And as usual, the Port stay to the Port timeline, and they're good at the start, coming off a finals straight sets exit, and then everyone's ripping Ken Hinkley, and then he wins a game that he should win, but everyone's saying he's on his way out, and then everyone's saying by the end of the season when he gets into the top 2, oh, he's the best coach in the land. Usually, they go out in straight sets. So this game is massive for them, not just because of that, but because Bodie said it really well off air earlier when we were doing a bit of extra time trivia. Make sure you check that out. If they win this, the monkey is off the back and anything can happen for them. And that is really, really true, because they don't want to have to go back to a semi-final, even if it is at home, because it's like, oh, it's happened again sort of thing. And we saw that happen with Melbourne last year. They're in a very similar position to Melbourne. They've been great during the mid-year, but then, back end, you just don't really trust them. And then all of a sudden, some players are a little bit injured, they're a little bit touchy, and you have a home final, but you've got a lot more pressure than you should, even though you're the ones at home, you're the one that finished second. So I think this game could go anywhere. I love that it's on Friday night because, well, to be quite honest, I don't think many, Victorians outside of Geelong supporters would watch it otherwise, because it's Port Adelaide. I might just be putting a bit of unnecessary dislike towards them there. But I think it's going to be great. I think if anything's going to help Port, it definitely will be the game being in Adelaide. Not that the Cats aren't great over there, but they're a lot better, in Melbourne, obviously, and stuff like that. But I think you could go anywhere. I think it's one of those games that could be won in the coach's box, which will be a very interesting battle, because both Scotty and Hinkley are very intelligent coaches, and they like to do the old chess move or two. But I think it's wide open for Jeremy Cameron. I'm not really backing in that Port defence. They've got some good tools in Asava and Aliir, but they've been a little bit banged up. Zerk Thatcher the same, sort of not. You don't trust them as much as a few of the other big key backs in the comp. So I think it's set up for him. But if Geelong are to win it, I think it comes from him, from the Cats forwards getting a bit off the leash without Port Adelaide being able to generate that run off defence. If Port are to win it, though, it's in the midfield, because if Butters has a good game, Wines has a good game, I'm not sure if the likes of Bowes and Bruin and an older Danger can really compete with that, especially because they don't have that awesome sort of leadership going through there anymore, and neither of them really have a good ruckman, so that might not even be important. But moving on, Friday night, oh boy, we're back. This game, I mentioned it last week. It's finally time.
This is it
is the most even matchup we could have possibly got out of these finals. I actually said before, again off air, that I would have rather go to Brisbane, and that sounds crazy.
I'm hoping for this game, though, to be close, because I can also see this game getting Western Bulldogs just absolutely destroying Hawthorn. I can see that. I think
when we played earlier in the season,
Hawthorn are to win, it's going to be close. But I'm just hoping if Bulldogs are to win, it's still within. It was a one
kick game when we played them our only time this season under the lead at Marvel, and that game started with the Dogs kicking 3 goals in what felt like a minute. And I remember sitting there after the third one went through from about 50. I think the Bont kicked it, and I remember thinking, we're going to lose by 80. We're going to lose by 80 points. And we ended up holding on, like you said, in a really, really close game by a kick. And that's how it ended. So I think you're right. I think it's the same. I think
that's what this final series, I reckon, though, needs is if this game is close, I reckon what you were saying earlier, this is the pathway to making it the best season. This game is crucial.
First time the Hawks have played on a Friday night since 2022 at the G.
Oh,
and they went through the lineup a few nights ago when they were training under lights at Punt Road, actually, and they asked all of the players when the last time they played a night game at the G was, and probably about half, 3/4 had never played a night game at the MCG. We've just been playing on Saturdays and Sundays. They've banished us, but you can't hold us back anymore. My comments on this game would be, you're right, it has all the markings that it will be the closest alongside the Sydney final. But I think it is almost certainly going to be the highest scoring because the way that each team move the ball, it's ballistic. It's just go.
I also
and
think
both defenses are great. They're awesome,
yeah.
but they're really aggressive. So I think there's potential in a finals game and the way that both these sides play and the way they pressure for there to be heaps of turnovers, but heaps of scoring on the back of that. So if both teams can take their chances, I would not be surprised if this game is 100 and 100 plus.
I'll make a prediction in this game that I can see it more being one team will kick 2 goals, one team will kick 2 or 3, and then it'll just be 2-3 goal patches. I don't think it'll be goal for goal.
Yeah.
I think one team might break away with 5 goals and then you see it that way. I think that's the way this game plays out. It's not one game where, from the two teams, they play those the patches of footy.
Yeah.
And if you give them a sniff, they'll break away for 5 minutes and kick 2-3 goals and then shut you down for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, I can see that being the way this game is played out. And
it's interesting. I think I said it
can do it
last
more.
week, but the Dogs are the most dangerous team for the Hawks in these final series, I think, and that's a massive call because they're one of the teams we beat. A lot of the others have beaten us in this season, but just like the fact that you start in the midfield, which has been Hawthorn's one wood, they have dominated that young midfield, who are all obviously 25 and under, 26 and under, have just absolutely smacked some of these midfields this season. Like Carlton ripped them apart, and they've got the Brownlow medalists in there. You know, Brisbane tore them apart, and they've got a Brownlow medalist in their midfield as well. The Giants, like they didn't win the second game, but they tore them apart as well. But I think the makeup of the Dogs' midfield is really similar to Hawthorn's, and not having Will Day is going to really, really hurt, because obviously he's a massive part of that midfield because he's the unicorn. He's hard in the contest, but then his skills on the outside are terrific. He's great overhead, so that adds that element to the Hawks' midfield. But you look at the Dogs, so they've got the Bont, and he will stand side by side with Connor Nash. So the bigger, like Nashy does nowhere near the player of Marcus Bontempelli, but he'll take him on. They'll play one-on-one. They're both big bodies. Then you've got Ed Richards and Tom Liberatore, and John Newcomb and James Warple. Just 4 absolute hard nuts, like decent skill on the outside as well, but like genuine contested balls, get back, help defend, clearance monsters. And then you've got English and Big Lloyd Meek, which is another awesome matchup. A little bit different sort of ruckman, but the matchups are really, really even. Like I probably couldn't split them when I'm thinking unbiasedly in that midfield. So I think it's going to be a game where Hawthorn will have to adjust because I don't think we'll have that clearance dominance that we've had for most of the season. So that could be a bit worrying how they defend that and adjust to it. But this game, without a shadow of a doubt, is going to be decided in the Dogs' forward line because I thinking about it, and I've been scratching my head for a week and a half since we got this matchup confirmed. I don't know who the bloody hell plays on Sam Darcy. The bloke is like 6'6". Hawthorn doesn't have any tall defenders. Like we've got Jack Scrimshaw's pretty lanky.
He will next year.
Sam Frost, like probably a little bit small. James Sicily, like he's just not quite tall enough. So I don't know who actually would take him. But then you're worrying about that. Once you finish worrying about that, you've got to find someone for Jamara Ugle-Hagan, who is, I mentioned Unicorn. He's unreal.
He's
and finally showing why he was that unanimous number 1 pick. And, you know, people saying Lex Franklin sort of type. Like, he's showing that. And then you've got Norton just on the side who's having nowhere near his best season, but he's a great finals player. So that's going to be a very dangerous forward line. I am happy because obviously Waitman's the one that usually gets forgotten and bobs up and wins them games as a little forward. But Blake Hardwick's going to shut him out of the game. So that's a win for Hawthorn. But the other ones, they're talls.
Yep.
It's going to be... That's where the game's going to be won and lost. That's just as plain as that.
It's a shame this is in 12 months' time where you could use Josh Battle.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see for that one.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I think if there's anything that helps the Dogs, I've just mentioned it, it's their tall forwards. And if their delivery is good, which I think it will be from the Bont and the likes, and they can dominate, you know, in the air, as long as they kick straight, they've got us on toast. And I've resigned to that. If anything's going to help the Hawks, it's the game being at the MCG, which is probably the biggest
and not
win.
Ballarat.
Yeah, or Etihad, or Marvel, sorry. Because the MCG is easily the best ground for Hawthorn because they spread it better than anybody in the comp. They run people ragged.
It's going to be amazing to see 70 to 80,000, I believe, will be there.
Yep.
And I think that in itself, the noise factor, will obviously, I think, it's one of those things. I think it favours Hawthorn because of the big ground. They play there more. It's just tough to see. I mean, you mentioned the doggies and like Trelaw, Bont, having them there. It's just.
Oh, I forgot it.
It's like you forget about players and then you mention them and then it's just like, oh, wow.
Completely forgot about Trelaw. So
like, even like English,
yeah.
It's going to be a sensational
It is going to be an absolute track meet. That's what I think. If it's good weather, it will be one of the quickest games all year.
Yeah, and the team, I mean, it's going to be a marathon of sprints.
Yeah,
I think is the best way.
And I think that we ran Carlton off the track a couple of weeks ago, but I think if there's any team to go with the Hawks, I think the Dogs are a really fit team, and who knows what will happen in that one. Then we've got the other eliminator. That will be we'll go in chronological order. We've got Sydney versus Greater Western Sydney.
Grand final preview?
I think this could be it. I think that the Giants go in as the best team in the comp for mine. Yes, they lost that last round in Ballarat, but we'll put that aside.
They've got the form going into the finals.
I'll keep saying it. They have the most unstoppable force in the league. And I said it last week. And teams know that Jesse Hogan and his fellow forwards are going to try and put your worst defender on him.
GWS have got this.
They know that's going to happen. You still can't stop it.
GWS have got this diamond in the rough of Jesse Hogan where, had you said 12 months ago, Jesse Hogan would have won the Coleman, you would have been laughed at.
And
had you said 24 months ago, Jesse Hogan would be winning the Coleman, you'd have been laughed at. Like, this is the thing where...
He's up there with Sam Doherty for Story of the Year.
Yeah.
Because this is what he was meant to be.
He's been able to actually find a club that suits him, that fits him, and then plays the brand of footy that
works hard. Worked hard, so hard mentally and physically to get himself in the right space, and boy, it's paying off.
Well, I can remember years ago where there were comments where he just isn't up to it. He isn't up to the standards. He's not living up to his potential and all that. But I think the GWS move was one of the best things that could happen to him. And he goes into a final against Sydney where this could almost determine...
Well, it's good that we've mentioned him too, because he, for mine, we've sort of done this for all the games, is the difference. If the Giants are to win, it's because Jesse Hogan will tear the game apart, because looking at the Swans, the thing that has caused their late season hurl, because obviously they were up there with the Cats, they were the most informed team for longer than the Cats as well. They had 3 Brownlow medalists according to everyone, all the experts. They weren't able to be defeated. They were just perfect until the Fremantle thing happened. And then they lost a couple of key defenders.
Apart, and I think that's the thing, is their defense is...
It's been shot in the foot. Absolutely shot in the foot. And then they were able to be torn apart, both, the way that the teams were moving the ball offensively against them, and then the marks and, the dominance they were able to get in the forward line capitalised best in Adelaide when they got beaten by 112 against Port Adelaide, where it was just a demolition in the Sydney defence, because they had they were trying to play, Big Logan down there. They had, the Lizard trying to play key defence. He's not a key defender, but that's what they had to do.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, to me, they are phenomenal, and they have the best top liners in the comp. There's no doubt about that. The way that their top liners turn into match winners, there's no one that does it better. But that's not why you win finals. You win finals because your bottom 4 play really well. So, for me, the read on Sydney is, yes, Heaney, Warner, Goulden can take the game away from you, but how good are their worst 3 defenders? How good are they? Because if I'm Jesse Hogan, I'm thinking, if McCartan and all those guys and Rampy, if they're a bit sore, if they're not playing down there, I'm going to have a field day. And if he does that, the Giants win. That's the difference for me. But I think the Swans...
But they've got to get the ball down there first as well.
And the way that the Swans...
Sydney's midfield is one where, it's almost one of the best in... Yeah. When they're on their game. And I could say that about almost
and they involve scores, which is the most important thing for them. So that's...
Papley,
that's their
Warner,
difference.
Goulden, and Heaney, I'll include, those 4. If they can make sure that the ball keeps going their forward line...
Yeah.
it means Hogan's not going to get any of the ball.
Yeah, and that's my read on them. So I think their defence and everything they've lost and everything's been bad news, but they didn't bank those 10 wins in a row or whatever it was for nothing. Like, they're clearly a good football team. So all they really need is that health and that ability to go, all right, check, all right, yeah, well, let's go back to playing how we did in the first start of the season. That's their difference. And then, obviously, it finishes on Saturday night, a rematch of last year's preliminary final.
We spoke about this a little bit earlier.
It's Carlton and the Brisbane Lions. Carlton, courtesy of Port Adelaide, sitting in that spot, not Fremantle. Came down to, obviously, the very last quarter of the season to get them there. And, obviously, they're going to have a completely different team that they had against the Saints.
Before you go into it, if you're a Carlton fan, would you be travelling up to the Gabba?
This is interesting, right? Because I was going to leave this before we did a bit more analysis, but I'm going to say this now. So what I was saying was they're going to get a lot different of a team than they had. That might affect the continuality of their form and the way they've been playing.
Yep.
Not that they were winning games, but it might affect it. I don't think it will. But they've just scraped in. They have literally just scraped in. They tried to do that in 2022. Didn't work, thanks to Billy Elliott. But it's worked this time. This is a team that was at this ground against this opposition last year. One win away, a couple points or whatever it was, away. One half away, really. They dominated the first half. Away from a grand final, which they haven't been in since, I don't know, before I was born. They have the supporter base that is starving and massive. The Blues Brothers will be there regardless. But if I am a normal, I shouldn't say normal, but a cheer squad Blues fan, I'm going.
Yep.
You know why?
Why?
Carlton will win this game. Carlton will win this game.
Are you calling it right now?
I'm calling it right now. Carlton will win on Saturday night.
I disagree.
They will win.
I disagree totally. Now, I know our good mate Josh, who will join us last week.
Josh will be there.
Hopefully he will join us this week, and he might be able to discuss this game as somebody who was there. But I disagree entirely with you in the fact that I think Brisbane are going to win this game. I think
now
the key factors are obviously kicking straight.
Yeah, so
if Brisbane kick straight,
so the Blues,
they win.
The Blues, I think they're actually a lot more even than people think. Charlie Curnow's been getting a bashing, saying he was no good in finals last year, and he's a bit sore, so he's going to be a liability. He'll hear that. He is, a player that has the ability to be the best in the comp. He's going to have a massive game. Sam Doherty alone, like I said before, they're going to be the most fired up team you'll ever see in that first quarter, and if they're not, none of them should play AFL again because where's your ticker?
Yep.
Right? Your coach has just saved.
Agreed.
Your coach has just become Superman over the last week. If you didn't see that, Michael Voss saved people and ran down some criminals because he is Superman. And on top of all of that, how'd your season end last year at this ground against this opposition, which after you went the long way, ruined you. That ruined and would have had to. Like, there is no way these players don't come out there on Saturday night and go, yeah, this is what we've been wanting all year.
Yeah,
who cares how we got here? Who
redemption.
cares that it took us to the last moment of the season to get here?
Yeah,
this is it.
Yeah, this is their
and Patrick Cripps and Sam Walsh are those sort of players. Cripps plays best when there's a bit of emotion on the line and there's something he can grab with both hands and go, I am fucking on. And so is Curnow and so is Mackay. I don't care how injured they are. Players play through injuries like they're not there in the finals. It's different, mate. They will win this game because Brisbane, on the other hand, have a serious problem with this. What's happened to them in the back half of the season? The Giants obliterated them in the first half. The Giants come back and win that game. Why? Brisbane can't kick. Brisbane can't hold a lead because of this. It's in here. Yes, they've beaten Carlton before in the finals as early as last year, but this season, they're falling apart. They fall apart when there's a bit of pressure on them. And what are Carlton going to bring in the first quarter? Pressure like you would not believe because they've got their favourite son and a bloke that's been through more than ever any player ever will, playing 6 months after a knee. They've got the motivation of being beaten last year. They're going to be a pack of rat dogs out there, mate. And the Lions are not going to be able to deal with it. And they're going to kick like buggery and they're going to get flogged, mate. Carlton will win the game. Book it.
Well, I've got one name, And
Carlton are on their way to Sydney. Call it.
I got one name that if Brisbane are to win, it'll be because of this man. I might have actually mentioned he played for the Doggies earlier. I picked up on my mistake, so I'm calling it now, and I'll have the letter there. Josh Dunkley.
Yep.
Charlie Cameron, Joe Danaher. Like, there's some big names in Brisbane. If they can fire and kick straight...
Oh, their football is great.
They win.
And their names are huge. It's not about that. It's about this for me. So I think I agree with you 100%. But my player and my difference for Brisbane is Harris Andrews, who's probably the only one on that team that actually has a bit of genuine ticker and can sort of hold the mind a little bit. Lachie Neale always plays great, but he's going to cancel out against Cripps and the rest. It's Harris Andrews for me because if Carlton dominate, it's going to be because Mackay and Curnow are throwing their bodies at everything.
Yeah.
If Harris can have a great game directing traffic, intercepting the ball, that's where the Lions can get on top. But the main thing is, it's the elephant in the room, Woods, kicking the ball through the big sticks, all right? So I think that's a pretty good wrap on what's going to happen in these games. But we're gonna take away a few of our normal segments, but one mini one that I thought we'd include is my boy of the finals. So I'm just going to do really quick. I haven't done much preparation on this. A boy for each team that's going to have a big game or however many games they play to get to that final one. So we'll start with the last game we did, and obviously I've just mentioned him. Harris Andrews is my pick for the Lions. I think for the Blues, the obvious one is Cripps, but for me it's actually Sam Walsh. And Sam Walsh hasn't actually had a great season by his standards at all.
I will actually agree
He's
with
been sore.
Cripps is the consistent one. If Carlton are to win, Sam Walsh needs to step up.
100%. And if Walsh goes back to playing that Robin he did so well in last year's finals, they're very, very hard to beat. Like, so hard because his work rate is higher than anyone's in the comp. That's just how it is when Sam Walsh is at his best. And he is the sort of player that has unwavering passion for his club. So with all those motivators I mentioned earlier, he's going to be, I just reckon he's prime for it. And he's my pick for the Blues. Back to the Sydney game, I think obviously it's an easy pick and, might think, oh, come on, like pick someone that, do a bit more, give a bit more thought for this. But it's Jesse Hogan for me. And you probably could throw Brent Daniels in there. I think Daniels is the one that you don't think about, but he tears games apart. For the Swans, I actually think it's the Lizard. And it's not just because I love him. It's because that defence, like we said before, is under pressure. But if they have the bodies in there to release the Lizard to his game where he's at his best, where he can intercept, he can lock down, but then he can run off, that's the Swans at their best. So that's my pick for those games. For the Dogs, this is a tough one because the easy pick again is the Bont. But I think against the Hawks, it's got to be Libba. Yeah. I think if Libba can, win clearances in that midfield against Uwarple, Newcomb, and Nash, the Dogs are away. Because you know what happens when Libba wins clearances, he feeds Bont, he feeds Richards on the outside, and the Hawks are going to... They haven't been put under pressure like that when the other team has good ball users. For us, I think it's, you could go to a lot of places. Not having Will Day is probably going to hurt, so you could say the midfielders, but I actually think it's where could I go here? I love them all. I'm not wearing the jumper today, but I've got the brown jumper on, the Prime Unwind. It's a great kit, Woods. I'm going to go with the captain, and I think it's because a lot of these guys he's playing with are new to finals, especially the young guys that bring a lot of that energy. So I think James Sicily, and it's crazy that he's the one that's going to have to do this as the captain because he was crazy when he was a young guy, but he needs to be able to go in a final. Give that energy, but don't go over the top because I can see them making mistakes and costing each other. Like, Wizard and Guinea and that, getting a bit excited. Connor McDonald, a few of those guys getting a bit excited in moments. Josh Weddle getting a bit excited and going over the top. They need to make sure you're pressure to a level, you're heightened to a level, but Sis needs to really lead. And then, obviously, he's going to have a big matchup whoever he plays on.
I'll give you an alternative for Hawthorn. I think Jack Ginnivan. He's had that experience of playing finals and winning a premiership. Obviously Gunson has as well, but because Ginnivan is new, he's about the age of the players. If he can bring that knowledge and experience to the squad and the players and going, keeping him calm. That to me is who I think if he can step up in this final series, Hawthorn could almost go all the way. If he is up there.
My one for Port Adelaide, not even sure if he'll play. He hasn't played much this year, but it's Ryan Burton. And we mentioned it before. We don't need to go over it again. Their halfbacks are so important to them, and that's where they are depleted. And they put Ryan Burton back there for the last week sort of to cover Houston after he was obviously suspended. He has to not only, play his natural game, which is he's a great defender. He's a strong enough, tall, good mark, but he needs to add the point to his game where he runs off and actually distributes. He's not going to be as good of a kick as Houston and penetrating as Farrell, but it's a big series for him. And I've got to finish with the one and only. It's Jeremy Cameron. He has the potential to absolutely tear this final series apart. He has the potential to be the best player in the comp for this next month. And it's as simple as saying it is really all up to him. But on the other end of that, there's only so many times and so many years, and he's done it for year in, year out. But Patrick Dangerfield is key as well. So they're my boys of the finals for each team. And now it is time for Who Can and Can't Win It. A very, very special edition of Who Can and Can't Win It. Woods. We've got the bracket here. So really quickly, I think they all can win. But who is your pick and why?
Okay, so...
Or are you ruling anybody out?
Big call right now. The winner of the Western Bulldogs Hawthorn game, I believe, will be making a prelim.
Okay.
So they will either play Sydney or GWS. My big call is the premiership winner will come from that preliminary final.
So that top one there.
Yes.
That's
Sydney
where your Premier will
GWS
be. Okay.
v. I'm calling it as either Western Bulldogs or Hawthorn.
All right.
So basically what I'm saying is I believe the premiership winner will be one of those four teams.
All right. So let's complete this thing. All right. So I'll go first here and just real quick, not too much preparation.
Yep.
I've got the Cats beating the Power.
Yep.
So we can lock them into that bottom preliminary final. The Power into the semi. I'm not going to leave the Hawks one for a moment. I've got Carlton winning, like I said, so Brisbane are out. The top one's very, very tough, but I've got the Giants just getting over. Just. So the Giants and the Cats will have home prelims. I think Sydney at home beat the Blues, unfortunately. But that's going to be very close as well. Could go either way. And we'll go back to that elimination final. I think they might get us. I think it's all set up for a Marcus Bontempelli, massive game. But the way that these Hawks play, mate, they just prove you wrong. And I think it all comes down to the Dogs' tall forwards. And I just don't know why. It might be the crazy bias confidence, but I just feel like the undersized defenders that we have are just going to get it done. So, for fun, I'll pick the Hawks. So the Hawks then play the Power, and that is a revenge game if you've ever seen it. We owe those one. We'll get into a prelim, and we'll play the Giants up in Canberra, and that will be the game of the year. The Cats obviously will play
in Canberra.
Oh well, hopefully we play that ground better. No, we'll probably play at the the cow paddock.
NG Stadium.
NG Stadium.
Yeah, I know it's NG Stadium.
I was going to say Giants.
What did Coxie call it?
Showgrounds.
The cow paddock up there.
Sydney Showgrounds.
I think, yeah. So the Cats and the Swans, again, could go either way, but I think with the weight of pressure on Sydney, maybe they get it done. I'm not sure, Woods. I'm not sure who makes this grand final from here, but I'm going to go with the prelims of the Giants and the Hawks and the Swans and the Cats, just for a bit of fun. Could be the Dogs either way. I should have done more preparation on this. It's very hard to do off the bat.
Well,
let's just go with a Swans-Giants grand final.
Okay, so Swans-Giants grand final. Before I hear your premiership tip, I'll go through mine. So, I'll start from the top. So, Giants defeating Sydney. Brisbane beating Carlton. Hawthorn beating Bulldogs. And Geelong beating Port Adelaide. So that leaves as Sydney and Brisbane. I've got Brisbane winning. Sydney straight sets out. Funnily enough, the top two. Well, I've just realised what I've done here. Port Adelaide Hawthorn. Hawthorn winning Port Adelaide. Straight sets out. First second straight sets out. Man. Giants v Hawthorn. And Brisbane v Geelong. And I think it's as much as I want to see Hawthorn winning, I think Giants are just that too switched on come finals. They've got that finals experience, and that's what's going to get them over the line. And Brisbane over Geelong, I think Brisbane are just switched on. They've come home like Chautauqua. A little bit of a horse racing reference if you don't know the Grey Flash. Sorry, Lorenzo, for using a horse racing reference against Geelong. But that leaves GWS versus Brisbane. Now, I think this is a great setup because they've been runners-up in the past, 2019 and 2023. So it's a chance for one of them to hold up the cup, and I think it might be a orange tsunami come September.
All right. I don't mind it.
So, what's yours?
I'm going to rethink it, and I might contradict myself, but that first bracket completion was a little bit of fun. Like I said, you've got to do it. You have a bit of fun and do it because it's so hard to actually do. If you actually get it perfect, well done to you. But I have created one of these, Woods. So you or I are going to go first here.
Okay.
Do you want to go first?
Okay. Now,
All right.
I might also go against what I've just said. I'm tempted to make a huge call, but I think
We'll make sure we keep these and we'll revisit at the end of September.
yeah, I'm going to contradict everything I just said from my bracket now because I'm there thinking about it, putting in the pieces. I think, luckily I don't have to do the whole bracket again. I go Premiers. I'll still say that it's going to be from that prelim, but I'm going to say if Sydney win the qualifying final and they play either Western Bulldogs or Hawthorn, so I'll go Sydney.
Sydney?
Yes.
All right. Who's the runner-up?
I'm going to say Geelong.
All right. Rematch.
Rematch of 2022.
Don't mind it.
And Isaac Heaney being the Norm Smith medalist. So another Isaac in a Sydney Geelong. Keeping up with that theme.
I like it. Keep cooking.
Now, Brownlow medalist, I think Collingwood and Dacos.
All right.
I think he's had a few cheap games where he might get those votes. Coach of the Year is already there.
Sweet.
I don't know why I'm getting Mark of the Year, but I'll stick with that. I'll go with most goals for the finals. I think that there is actually a good go. The best player, I think.
Best player of the finals is the Gary Ayres medal.
I think Heaney as well. I think if Sydney are to win it, he's going to be one of the key players. Obviously, couldn't win the Brownlow, but Mark of the Year, I'm going to go with Elliott, Anzac Day.
Billy?
Yep. Goal of the Year, I'm going to go Higgins. Either one, round 2 or round 24. Round 2 from the car park, round 24
So just
over
checking,
the brick wall.
most goals you are going with the dart.
I'm going with the dart.
All right. So these last two are a shocking bad thing from the finals that will happen and a shocking good thing that will happen.
Shocking bad thing is going to be a heartbreaking injury that will see this season end for a player, and the premiership hopes also for that team.
Okay.
And the shock good will be I want to say it's a comeback. We're going to see a great comeback from one of the games throughout the finals. And it's going to be talked about. Like, this is the game, or this was the moment of the finals. It'll be Sydney could be down.
All right.
It could be Geelong kick 5 goals, and it looks like it's going the same way. Then Sydney just steam home. There will be a team that's at least 20 points down win a game.
All right. Well, you've just put yourself under the scope there, so it's my turn now. So we're going to do this for the second time. You probably won't see it, but I tried this before and I lost my mind and I almost ruined the episode. But that's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. And these finals are already doing my head in, and they haven't even started, Woods.
Can I give you one piece of advice? Don't overthink it. First thing that comes to mind, go with it. Flow with it. Put Hawthorn up the top straight away. Put Dylan Moore as the Norm Smith medalist.
Before you steal my thunder, so I'm going to start at the bottom for a bit of fun. And I've got Hawk preliminary final, Woods. So we're going to ride the wave. What about that?
Only a prelim.
Starting next to that, my goal of the year is Harley Reid in Perth against the Demons.
You're already disappointing me. Two in, and he's already absolutely breaking my heart.
My shock bad is that the Lions lose at home after they were meant to be going back to the grand final. Everybody's going to be picking Brisbane. Carlton go up and upset them on their home turf, Woods. So, going back to the bracket, just so this all makes sense. So, here we go. So, right. So, if we make the prelim, we get there. Correct. Okay, good. All right.
So
And I reckon Sydney will beat us.
You've wiped out the doggies?
Oh, I've wiped out the Dogs, yes.
Okay, so Sydney are in a grand final, is what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm
You
saying
just said
they make
Sydney-
it.
Sydney-
They'll play Geelong.
You just
Because
said
Greater Western Sydney will be the team that Hawthorn play in the prelim. Because
You
I've
just
got
said-
I've got them beating Sydney.
Well,
in
you
week
just
one.
said Sydney will beat us.
Yeah, well, I wasn't thinking straight, mate. Just let me think through it.
I'll
All right.
let you cook, but I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to be the assistant here of hearing what you're
All
saying.
right. You know what? Yeah. No. Fair enough. I reckon the Swans will win that. Will win the final on Saturday afternoon. Who knows, really? But I'm just going
It's
to
a
go
toss
with it.
of the coin
go
each
with it,
game.
mate.
Toss of the coin each game.
All right.
So who is Sydney playing in the grand final?
It's tough.
So who wins? Port Adelaide, Geelong.
You know what? All right. So it's going to... Who did you say? I don't want to be the same.
I
as
said
you.
Sydney and Geelong. Oh, might as well host it at the SCG.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, mate.
Yep. So
Alright.
who are we going for?
Goals. I want to be different. Who did you put for goals? You put the Dart, didn't you?
I put the Dart, but I can definitely see this man. I was about to say Hogan.
Yeah.
This is why wavelength would be a pretty good team.
Yeah, we would. All right. Who haven't I done? I haven't done Normie. Joyce,
Yeah.
that's tough.
You haven't done Brownlow, Mark of the Year, or Best of the Year, or Coach of the Year, but I'm guessing Coach of the Year is going to stay the same. So you're going Toby Green in a losing grand final.
Hold on.
Oh,
It's big Soundwoods.
the Orange Tsunami. As I said in my bracket, the Orange Tsunami, and then I've totally changed it.
All right. Oh,
Will he stick with the Brownlow of Dacos? Will he be annoyed at Brownlow Medal Night? Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at a boxy who is thinking to himself, can I really put Dacos in as a Brownlow medalist?
I realise I just changed yours. I'm having an absolute mare today, team. My bad. All right. We're back on track here. Here we go. So,
Best player? Who's the best player going to be?
that's tough. That is really tough, isn't it?
I feel like it has to be a GWS play if you're saying Sydney's going to beat Hawthorn. So GWS will play 3 or 4 games where I reckon there will be a consistent player.
I'm going to go with the Dart.
Oh.
Feeling it.
So have you going most goals as Hogan still, or?
Yep. That's going to work, trust me.
Coach of the year, is that going to be Sam Mitchell?
It's going to be Sam Mitchell. So,
And Brownlow.
without further ado, the toughest one probably on this list and doesn't even have to do anything with the finals.
It's
Oh.
Brown. Will you give it to the Bond? Cripps. Has he done enough?
Has he done enough? Do we take him out?
I think that's the question for all the Brownlow medal, like every year, is has he done enough?
You know what, Woods?
Am I going to see Ndakos? No. Cripps. Cripps Dacos tie.
Cripps Dacos tie.
That is a big call. You call
But
it.
wait. It's going to happen again, Woods.
I would love to see it. It happened 21 years ago. Buckley, Goods, and Rashudo, if I'm not mistaken, 2003.
If anyone watches this, well done, because I wouldn't. But it's done. I've ruined yours along the way, but here is my predictions. The Giants will win their first premiership. The Swans will be there. Toby Green will tear the game apart. Cripps Dacos and the Bont will win the Brownlow medal. Jesse Hogan will kick a lot of goals, but only beating Jeremy Cameron in the grand final. The Dart is going to be the best player in all of Geelong's games. Sam Mitchell is your coach of the year. Billy Elliott's winning the mark of the year. That's pretty certain. I think Reid will be second and Hill third. Lions are going to lose at the Gabba. Harley Reid's going to win the goal of the year. And the Hawks are going to be the best happy story of the season. We're going to be in the prelim and we're going to be outdone.
And you can live
by
in
the
fantasy
tsunami.
world because, you know, it's not going to happen. But
Well, the Swans. We're going to
the,
lose
no,
to
the
the
goal
Swans.
of the year I'm talking about. But
We got there in the
Nah,
end, mate.
I will be honest, I can, like, there are a lot of worthy contenders with goal of the year. I know I did say Higgins, and then I had to actually go through and watch quite a few of them during the week. So it's that, to me, is going to probably be the toughest one because of, you can say it's Harley Reid, but then you look at Higgins, you look at Philippou, you look at Max King, you look at Higgins again. I'm just mentioning the Saints there, but I'm there.
We got to
going-
win something.
No, I'm just going out of the Saints goals. I thought Higgins would have been a clear runner. Then I saw them. I'm like, oh, actually, I don't know. Like, they're different categories. Like, Higgins is the moment goal, where Reid is definitely he takes the players on and then is able to finish the job. You've got Max King from an angle. You've got Philippou in the wet from the boundary line from an angle. You've got Higgins in round 2 from the car park. You've got
Dacos on the Gold Coast.
you got all the others.
Weddle against Carlton.
Yeah, you got all the others.
Weddle against GWS.
But Weddle was round 24, wasn't it? Not. No, sorry, it wasn't round 24. It was what's the name I'm thinking of? I think. It was,
It could go a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Something that also happened during the week we haven't touched on, and it's a big discussion. If we have any breath left. So, this is an absolute joke.
I think this is the perfect.
And we talked about it last
I think
week,
this is
and
the
we said
perfect segment to end it on because
team that will beat invaders at the game. The best team
Yeah.
you could possibly put together
you
to
want
defend
this,
our country.
You want this to be a team that would beat a premiership team, like the premiership winning team. You take those players out.
I'm telling you right now, we're not putting the best team out there because the best ruckman out there, the best two ruckmen out there. That's obvious.
Sherry and Marshall. I mean, Marshall missed the squad. I don't know how. Gawn.
And if Gawn goes out there right now
if Gawn
with
season,
a broken foot,
if
we're not
Gawn's
winning.
season was the best of a ruckman, I have been watching a totally different season. I rate Max Gawn. He's an incredible player, and it's nothing. Like, this isn't a negative towards him. This is a negative towards the selectors. So I don't want to be taken of, I'm dissing Max Gawn. Max Gawn's career, definitely worthy of there. The problem is all Australians aren't based on a year, the career. It's based on a year.
that's how they're picked,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And I think this is the thing where I'm like, well, hold on. Max Gawn,
because to me it's
His season to me just doesn't rank up now.
and it stinks of they got him this one because he had an okay season, and he's the only reason Melbourne stayed half alive,
Yeah.
which is nowhere near. It's not
But
because
you
he's
had-
great.
you had
It's because
Sherry-
the other teams
you
fell
had
apart.
Sherry in a bottom
And it stinks
side.
of, but if we give Max Gawn this, he's got 6 and he only needs 7 to tie the most all time.
Yeah, yeah.
My ass, mate.
Yeah, you had Sherry who, for a bottom side, was up there in
He's
tackles,
not only the-
up there in
yeah.
hit-outs, but he was
Not only the
most
best
consistent.
ruckman in the comp, but he was one of the best midfielders in
Yeah.
the competition. Like winning clearances non-stop for a North
But-
Melbourne team that wasn't any good. Top 2 in tackles, kicked goals, and he gets absolutely no reward for a season that is, you haven't seen a season like that from a ruckman in quite a while.
Like you look
And he
at,
played every game.
you take
may
the
I add.
ruckman out, you look at the others. I know your thing. I'm only going to touch on it. You're not allowed to have any discussion on this. Nick Dacos on the wing. We've mentioned it. There you go. That's all we're going to say about it. We're not saying anything else.
Put the beep in. You'll need it. It's an absolute fucking disgrace.
You actually.
Absolute disgrace.
I said we're not going to say anything about it because if I knew that.
And
was
even
coming.
Errol Gordon
This
was
is
on
the
board.
thing. This is the thing. I think.
Errol Gordon, an
Once
established
again-
wingman, on the night said, "Oh yeah, geez, it's a bit funny to see that. It's good that Nick played the last 5 minutes of the year on the wing and he got picked. Yeah, it's great. If he can even see it, obviously it's obvious. Like,
The All-Australian
sure,
needs to be.
he won the MVP. Sure, he's probably going to win the Brownlow medal. He has to be in the team. I don't disagree with that, mate. But he's not a wingman.
Yeah, the All-Australian.
Why is
So the All-Australian team needs to be. It needs to get some credibility about it. Now, for years, they've said, "Oh, they play a midfielder in the forward line." There's always this discussion about players that miss out that shouldn't have missed out. Yes, okay, I know that there's always going to be those unlucky ones, but when you come down to it, and you're looking at a squad and you're playing people out of the position just to put them in, it's kind of like, why is this even a thing?
And
Now I'm taking
Slow-mo raised a good point.
Take it out of the Nick Dacos situation and just talk about the selection as a whole. And I'll let you make your point in a second.
He makes a good point. He said, well, they have to have all these mids in because any of them could win the Brownlow medal. And that is also a bit of a mess because why they select this team before they know the Brownlow medalist is a joke.
They've done it in the past where the Brownlow medalist isn't even in the All-Australian
Yeah,
side.
Lachie Neale.
So that's a thing of, guess what? These are 2 separate awards. They're not, he didn't make the All-Australian, therefore he's not worthy enough. It's like, hold on, no. The All-Australian team is, the most consistent player might not necessarily be the Brownlow medalist. The best player for the year might not necessarily be the Brownlow medalist. Why? Because, okay, there are
They need to fix that then.
multitude of reasons. Like the Brownlow medal, I think, is an overrated award because of it's the best 3 players of each game. Now, if you're consistently in the top 5, but not necessarily in the top 3, then okay, well, you're not going to poll as many votes, but in other awards you would. Now, once again, it's a umpires award. I say it's overrated. I love the Brownlow medal. I'm not going to disrespect it any further, but I just think it's used in cases like the All-Australian team and other areas where it's like, hold on, this person has to be in there because he might win it. Well, what if he doesn't win it? Then what? It's one of those things where
I think
I think all the awards need to
you
be.
move the awards night, you move the Brownlow, or if you're too stubborn and bloody stupid to do that, you let the Australian team selectors, the All-Australian team selectors, know the votes if you're that concerned. Because if you're picking the All-Australian team, you can't tell anybody anyway. So why can't they just know the votes so they ensure that they get the Brownlow medalist or medalists in the team, if it's that important? My thing to solve it would be, because this team is not how I would pick an AFL team, because you have to have a team that would actually play and work together
but this
and
is-
play.
this
and
is the
sure,
thing,
this team would win finals and play quite well together because there's a lot of superstars in it. But for proper synergy, which you have to win a premiership, it doesn't work. And there is options
This has been
to
the
make
thing
it work.
for all
And
Australians.
I'll
years
go
though.
through those because like you said, you don't want me talking about Nick. That's fine, but I'm going to talk about him. He shouldn't be on the wing. He should be in the midfield, sure, because he's probably going to win the Brownlow. I love Caleb Sarong, but he's probably not going to win the Brownlow. Nick's probably got a better chance. Fair enough? Fair enough. So he takes Caleb's spot in the midfield. Caleb goes to the bench. You pick an actual bloody wingman. And people saying, and I understand that there might only be 5 or 6 good wingmen in the competition. Why would you pick, the third best wingman in the comp, and they're not actually even that good? It's easy to get in the All-Australian team. I get your point, but some years there might be all the key backs might be horrible. You're still going to have to pick a key back, aren't you? You're not going to pick 6 smalls.
But no.
So
but this is the thing
if
they've
you're
done
good
in the
enough
past.
wingman, you get into the team because you're a wingman. It's a specialised position. There is a reason there's only 5 or 6 good ones, because most of the clubs in the comp just send their midfields out there. They send their big inside midfielders out there, and how well do they do? Awful.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Errol Goulden is one of the best in the competition. It's because he's a wingman that plays the wing beautifully. Same with Massimo D'Ambrosio. He plays the wing beautifully, and when they try, not that they do that often, but if they try to put James Worpel out there or any of the other midfielders, even Will Day, they don't play as well because they're not a wingman. It's a specialised position. So you've got to have them in there. And it makes it more coveted then if you are the wingman that gets selected, because there's only 2 of them. So my solution would be to make sure that you have the best team, it represents it. You've got to take a leap out of the NFL and the NBA, who pick their teams. And the NBA has even less actual positioning than the AFL does. Like the NBA, they've got their positions, but it's basically just like a height sort of, where you sort of start and move on the court. We've actually got, yes, it's a freer game these days. We've actually got more positioning than them. We start in these positions. Like they don't start there. They're more free. The NFL have set positions. But my thing would be to do what they do and pick a first team, second team, hell, bloody third team if you need one. Because then you actually get in your position. If you are picked in the first team, you are the best in your position or second best. And in the midfielders thing, then, because at the moment, like Zach Butters or Lachie Neale, you can have an incomplete season where you have a couple of monster games where people go, oh, wow. And like you were saying, they might get 15 Brownlow votes, 10.
Yeah.
And they
else.
get picked in the All-Australian team. So it's like you don't even have to have that good of a season as a midfielder because they pick that many of them.
Yeah.
Whereas in my model, if you're first team, you are one of the 4 best midfielders in the competition. How much of an honour is that? Like you would strive to be in that first team. And that's perfect. And then you have the best 2 wingmen. You're striving to be the best 2 wingmen. The best ruckman. If you're first team All-Australian, you are the best ruckman and the best 2 ruckmen. Like, it's a no-brainer, if you ask me. And then you don't have things like, Neale and Butters getting in because they had a couple of good games and their teams are in the finals and they're probably going to get a couple of Brownlow votes, not sure. You got to have them in. Over guys like D'Ambrosio who play his position the best, second best. Guys like, Harry Sheezel and, Tristan Jerry, who easily could have been on that bench, but they didn't want to pick him because they had to put these midfielders in.
Well,
like Tristan Jerry is first team All-Australian. There's no doubt he's on that bench. And Zach Butters and Lachie Neale and Lachie Whitfield, their seasons are good, but they're probably second team All-Australian.
Now, I've said this for a couple of years, and I'll repeat it. I think the All-Australian team selection and the way they go about it needs to be reviewed and changed. It's years ago there was like midfielders in the forward line or midfielders in the back line. They've always played people out of position or selected people not in their rightful position because of they've just got that, this person needs to be in the side and he can't be on the bench, so he needs to be on the field and someone will miss out or whatever the story is. Now, whatever way you go about it, there's always going to be somebody complaining. I think that's the way you look at it now. I think look at this, the forward line and the back line are basically one of the best forward lines and back lines I've seen in quite some time.
I still think it's tough. I think Heaney did play a little bit forward, but they're midfielders. So
no, but they're midfielders that can play, that have played forward and that are like
not enough for me to be picked as a half forward. I think the half forwards you picked are a Dylan Moore at best, starts. He's a half forward first. If he was listed in his positions, it'd be half forward / midfielder. They're the forwards that I want in my forward line. If Warner and Heaney have to be in the team, take the others out, or make one of them second team. Just like, it's harsh, but do it.
Well, if they had a second
Represent
team,
the
if they had a
competition
second
properly.
team, I think they would do that because of you could actually more like reward players. You'd have a greater squad. You'd have players
Because
okay.
then you're buying, if you're a half forward,
The
you're
prob-
buying to be one of the best medium or best small defenders, and there's only a couple spots, so it makes it more prestigious.
Like,
And then,
I go back
if you
to it.
want
The
to
problem
put
is-
all these people in, you could put the whole squad of 40 in and make everybody happy, because half of them will be second team, which is still a great honour.
Yeah, like I think
Because there's like 800 to 1,000 players, and you're in the top. If you're in the second team, you're still in the top 50.
yeah, like it's there's never going to be that right solution because, as I said, everybody will complain. I just get annoyed when it's like I'm looking at this, I'm going, well, what is the purpose of the All-Australian team? It's, just pick the squad. Pick the top 50 players, top 40 players, leave it at that. Because then guess what? You put them in positions, so you have X amount of ruckmen, say 3 ruckmen, right? You have midfielders, you have the backs, you have the forwards. You have no bench, you just go, these are the top 50, but in ranking them in, okay, you might go top 20,
Yeah, first team,
top 15 of each position.
and you can rank
and
them
5
first team,
rucks.
second team, and if you are first team or if you're third
Yeah.
team, you're still all Australian. So when they announce you when you've got the ball in a game, you're still an all Australian, whether you're first team or third team. But for that year, you were not the best in your position, so you might have been second team.
Yeah.
Because there's people that are better than you. It's just simple to do, but unfortunately, we have a
But
sport
I
where
don't-
there's
I don't
too
think-
many
I don't think we'll
old heads like you
Americanise.
that like tradition too much, and they're just going to keep
I
doing
don't
this.
think we'll
And every year
Americanise
they're
that
going to
way.
promise that they've changed the selection table and they've changed how they pick it,
I think.
and it's all bull dust, mate.
Well, it's because of the people selecting them. You've got people selecting them. I think there's the end of the day. It's irrelevant of who they actually are. Is because you've got a selection board of humans. You're always going to have that. Oh, this person was unlucky to miss out. Like last year, Callum Wilkie made it, and Wiedering didn't. And who was the other one that missed out?
I can't remember, but
Yeah, it's just like, okay, well, guess what? That's sport. Like, they're not
I just
I
think
like
that-
your idea of that, but at the same time, I'm like, no, these are the best team, and yeah, it's one of those things.
and no one's really going to miss out if you have a second team or a third team, because
Like, okay, how far do you
discussion
go?
will
How
still-
far do you go?
the discussion will still be there. That,
How far do you
this
go,
guy
though?
should have been first team, but if,
No, how many
if you're
teams do you
not in
go?
the second team, that's like 50 players, and there's a big gap. Like, if you're not in the top 50 players, you probably don't deserve to be
I think the top 2, you'd only do 2, so you have
first team, second team, all
first-
Australian. Yeah.
first team and the reserve team basically, second team, but it's like there's no.
Because then, like, and everyone probably say, oh, but that's so many, like, you're rewarding so many people. But like I said before,
I just think
there's
you,
18 teams,
I just think you need to
which
announce
all
the
have,
squad.
what, 40 on the list. So that's like, how many players in the AFL? Like 800,000. And even if you do 2 teams, that's only 50 players.
I think you announce a squad of 44 players, and then you make a 44 player squad, 22 on the in the All Australian team, which means the next best 22 would make up that.
Yeah, second team, all
Yeah,
Australian.
But
Yeah.
they don't necessarily announce that. It's like, okay, well, I think
I'd
that's
be
kind of what they're
announcing
doing at the
both.
moment.
Just go for the NBA, NFL model. Like, I know that they want to keep the tradition and everything, but like, everyone's jumping off ship, and no one cares about these teams anymore, and no one gives them any merit. So why wouldn't you change it? It's broken. So change it. It's enough on that. Congratulations to everyone who made it. Well done to Dylan Moore as well. Very proud of him. Had a great season. But that is about all we're going to talk this week. Finals is going to be huge. Like I mentioned tonight, Port Adelaide and Geelong in Adelaide, going to be massive. Dogs and Hawks, Friday night, huge. Absolutely monumental. Saturday afternoon, it's the Swans and the Giants. And of course, Saturday night, Brisbane and Carlton. And the Blues will win. Go Baggers on Saturday night. They deserve that one. And good luck to Doc. Hopefully he gets through. But enjoy Christmas weekend, footy finals weekend. It's the same thing. It's that bloody good. The first week of 4. It's been a long year, but it's been a good one. And we're very, very keen for it. And when this ends, and while this is going, if you're that like footy mad and you want something more, what better to have than AFLW? And it kicked off over the weekend, Woods. We're not going to give it too much love because there's a lot of footy yet to be played. And simply you will just tune out because we've gone that long already. But I will say, if you are looking for a bit of AFLW reporting, a bit of, what happened on the weekend, a little bit of talk show, a bit of yapping from people that are better than us and know more than us and sound better than us and look better than us, don't go any further than Talking W on Channel 7. It'll be in 7 Mate and 7 Plus every Monday night. And it is these two legends, Kate McCarthy and Abby Holmes, talking AFLW. It is on Channel 7. Make sure you don't miss it. The first one was the other night. You can go back and watch that one. Benny Brown was on the show. I'm not just pumping it up because I worked on it, Woods. It's an absolutely phenomenal new show. I love that there is a dedicated show for the AFLW because it's unreal. And the weekend's games were nothing short of unreal. So make sure you check out Talking W next week. Before we wrap up, can't not mention the local stuff. All wrapped up from your end, but West Gippy footy still going. And this is the joy of finals, Woods. This is what we're going to see this weekend on the big stage. Agony and ecstasy. And on the weekend, unfortunately, my boys, including this team, the Under-18s, with my brother, all Inverloch Comwack football teams played in the Sunday's semi-final, the do-or-die semi-final, win and get into the prelim, lose, and you are done. All 4 Inverloch Comwack teams lost. So no back-to-back premiers for the first, seconds, and thirds, the Under-18s, and no premiership for the Under-16s. Inverloch Comwack footy is done. And this is the agony and ecstasy in this photo. This was a last minute goal to send Nana Goon over the top of Inverloch Comwack in the Under-18s. This was similar in the seniors when the Inverloch Comwack flag defence was ended by Nana Goon. And these photos, which I'm sure you'd enjoy, just show the emotion of both sides when a final is decided. So unfortunately my boys are out. But it was a great weekend, both at Nana Goon and Coral Lynn, and this photo is great as well. In awful weather, people still show up, and it's great country footy because there's all cars around, there's people everywhere, all the clubs converge on the one ground. It's the best thing ever. It's my favourite part of life, footy and country footy, local country footy. It's unreal. This weekend, it's the penultimate week of the season. It's been huge. Phillip Island on Saturday with the main man Prime Train. Hats off to him and his kit as well, Prime Unwind, get around it. Phillip Island into their 5th consecutive grand final, Woods, if you don't mind. 5 in a row, dating back to 2018. The only year they didn't make it was the first year of the comp, and that was 2017 when they lost in the prelim. So, easily the best club in it. Look like the team to beat again. They want to back up from last year when they lost to Inverloch Comwack, and they are a force. And they will play either Coral Lynn or Nana Goon, who will battle it out this weekend in the prelim at Darlston. I cannot wait for that. It is going to be mega. If you can't get down there, I implore you to do so. Listen to me on the radio on SEN Gippsland 91.3 FM. But until then, I'm going to give you a rest from my voice and Woodsy's voice. We are done for our footy episode this week. Make sure you catch the Aussies Around the Grounds one, which is not footy. It is a refreshing blend of all things Aussies around the grounds. So make sure you catch that as well. And we'll be back for you next week. Enjoy footy finals. Enjoy the NFL as well. Enjoy all the sport this weekend. And we'll see you next week.